Are Greg and Maya professional reviewers? Absolutely not. Like amateurs at best, but it's okay because they're funny, smart, and kind of adorable. Bless their hearts. So sit back, relax, and tune into this week's episode of All Queued Up.
Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to All Queued Up, the review podcast tied to streaming service shows. On today's show, Halo Season 2, Episode 5, the new series on FX Shogun. We're going to talk about the first 3 episodes. Our discussion topics. Last week we talked about adaptations. I have a really good reference for if an adaptation is good or not. So I want to bring that up. And we're going to talk about... all I have on my notes for the discussion is old dudes in the ring, so we'll get to that. But first, I'm Greg. That's Maya. How's your week been, Maya?
Pretty busy, pretty good, pretty eventful. You know, one of the things over the past few years that I have done is fallen kind of, heavily into credit card debt to where I was
like it's a hobby.
Yeah. Well, it was supplementing my hobbies.
I know. I'm being facetious with.
But the interest rates on those cards were getting out of control, and I was paying essentially $1,200 a month on credit card bills. Which in the past 3 or 4 months has put some financial strain on us because Misty's job after Thanksgiving until this past week or two, she's been working on reduced hours. Instead of working 35 hours a week, she's only been able to get 20. Fortunately, we've been, things have been tight, but not been horrible. But I was watching the Philip DeFranco show on YouTube last week, and he did an ad for this debt relief program that sponsored his channel. So I went to it, and I talked to him, and he was like, well, the great thing about this is you'll be debt-free within 24 to 48 months, depending on your monthly payments. The downside is you're going to take a temporary hit to your credit. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, Chastity's selling us this house, but it's a transference. I don't have to go through a bank. I don't have to go through a realtor. It's a transference of ownership between her and I, which I'll make monthly payments to her. We'll have a legal agreement drawn up, but I don't have to deal with the credit red tape, right? So I enrolled in this debt relief program, and now I have a legal team, which is a negotiation team working with my creditors to negotiate my debt down. And as they do so, I am paying off, I'll be able to pay off 2 small creditors this week. I already made my first deposit and everything. I enrolled in it, spoke to the lawyers and legal representatives, et cetera, et cetera. And now instead of paying $1,200, I'm paying $395 a month. So it's a savings of basically $800 a fucking month, which has greatly reduced the stress load. And then I bought a bunch of Warhammer shit. I'm like, well, if I'm going to have to pay off these credit cards anyway at a reduced rate, and they're working to negotiate my debt down, I may as well go ahead and max out this one card. And I spent about $300 on Warhammer shit. So it was just delivered, all of it but one box, which hasn't shipped yet. But I got the Space Marines Codex for 10th edition. I got a Ballistus Dreadnought a squad of 10 Infernus Marines. The miniature of the Forge Father Vulcan Heston, which is one of the 2 characters to use in my Salamander's army, and the other is Adrax Agaton, which is the other main character in the Salamander's army. And I'm waiting on a combat patrol box. But yeah, I've been building like a motherfucker the past few days. I built a whole squad of Primaris Intercessor Marines, and I built a librarian from the combat patrol box that I picked up at the comic shop last Friday. So yeah, I've got 11 Marines built and 10, 14, 15, 17, plus 2. I got that many more to build, and 2 tanks and a dreadnought. I'm going to be busy building and painting for a while. But that's okay, because, I'm looking forward to playing. But of course, to play, you have to have a painted army. I mean, you have to have a minimum of 3 colors on a miniature. Fully painted 3 colors at least. That's a rule. But the comic shop, Cavalier Comics, that I've been frequenting and have been a customer of since 1995, and been friends with the owner since 1995. Every Sunday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., they have what they call Miniature Sunday, Miniature Game Sunday, where they play Warhammer and other games all fucking day. They got several tables set up, free terrain to use, and you just take your army and your dice and your tape measure and go. And hey, I've got a shit ton of dice and I've got tape measures, and I'm working on an army, and soon I'll be playing, soon as in not like in the next couple weeks, but hopefully by the end of April, 1st of May, I'll have enough done to where I can actually go start playing. So yeah, been building a lot. I had to order some white primer. I have several different primers. I've got airbrush primers. Steinel Res makes some of the best airbrush primers out there. I've got black, gray, and white for it. But I've always liked rattle can primer. And even though it leaves behind a little bit of a texture, I want that texture because it grips the paint better and the paint settles in and fills in. That texture is not visible if you thin your coats well enough and paint well enough. So I had to order some more white primer yesterday because I was out, and it should be here tomorrow or the next day. But it was like $5.88 a can from Walmart. I got 2 cans of it versus paying like $18 a can for rattle can primers that are designed specifically for minis. I've used both. Honestly, the Rust-Oleum, that shit's fucking wonderful. I've won a painting competition priming with that stuff, using it as my primer instead of an airbrush primer. No texture was left behind, so I'm good with it. But yeah, a lot of nerd hobby shit going on. I got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth delivered. Haven't even cracked the game case open yet because I've been so busy building miniatures. And getting WWE 2K24 delivered today. UPS will be bringing it later this morning or early afternoon. Just depends on when they drop it off. And who knows when I'll start playing that either. But yeah, a lot of nerd and hobby shit going on. Other than that, just been watching wrestling and watching the shows for the podcast, and watching / listening to lore videos about Warhammer and painting videos, because I always watch many painting videos, tutorials, and various things, listening to a couple of podcasts here and there. But yeah, that's been my week in a nutshell. How's your week been?
It's been mostly fine. It's been quiet considering the last 3 weeks of my life are extremely busy.
A bit.
It's just been chilling at home and doing my dad's dialysis and watching things. I watched the entire this short series of films by Wes Anderson on Netflix. A bunch of basically adaptations of short Roald Dahl short stories of his. It's actually pretty interesting if you watch all of them. It's pretty interesting how he makes them. So I do recommend those if you're into Wes Anderson. Because here's the thing about Roald Dahl is everyone knows him for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Read anything else of his, and it's fucking weird. Super goddamn weird.
I've never read or seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
None of them?
Nope.
How, Maya? How have you not accidentally stumbled upon fucking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which was the first adaptation?
The Gene Wilder one?
Uh-huh.
I just never had a desire to watch it and never made an attempt to watch it.
I'm impressed by that.
You'd be surprised with the amount of things that are very popular in pop culture that I have either A, had no desire to watch, or B, deliberately chosen not to watch because I just don't have a level of give a fuck enough to check it out.
I just, that's wild to me. That's wild. There's a couple reasons why it's wild. It's like when someone says they've never seen Jurassic Park, or they've never seen a Star Wars movie, or they've never seen a Christmas Story. Those movies were on TV so fucking much that's why it's surprising. The fact you've never just been bored one day scrolling through what's on TV and just happen upon it.
I didn't watch a lot of TV growing up. I grew up on a farm. Yeah.
You've been an adult.
But I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch sports, like North Carolina basketball. I watched them beat the absolute dog shit out of North Carolina or Notre Dame last night. Their final home game of the regular season. They got one more regular season game left at Duke this Saturday, so I'll be glued to that. But unless it's something we're watching for the show, I generally don't watch a lot of TV unless it's something that really catches my eye. I don't watch a lot of TV. And haven't, for quite some time. Growing up, I grew up on a farm, so I was always outside either doing fucking farm work, or when I wasn't, I was playing basketball or riding my ATV or, things like that. I didn't stay inside, that in night when I would get done, I would play, video games, with my brother or things like that. But yeah, I never watched a lot of TV, so I didn't catch a lot of shit growing up.
Well, let me ask you this.
And as an adult, I've worked.
Wait, let me ask you this, because here's a question. Have you ever seen The Shawshank Redemption?
That's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
See, that's another movie that was on TV all the fucking time. You would.
It was, but I also have a thing about watching a movie on TV, edited for content, edited for time with commercial breaks. I fucking hate it, and I refuse to watch them. So I actually rented Shawshank even though I could have probably waited a day and a half and watched it for free on TV, I actually paid like $3 to rent it one time and watched it that way and fucking fell in love with it. I was like, oh, what a wonderful fucking movie. But yeah.
I mean, you can explain it 80 ways from Sunday. It's still fucking wild to me. You've never seen some of these iconic films. It's just, it really is. That'll never not be.
Pluck an iconic pop culture film out of the air, and the odds that I haven't seen it versus that I have are pretty good.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Put me on the spot here with that.
You know I'm a Star Wars fan, and I've seen all the Star Wars movies.
And you've seen Jurassic Park.
I've seen all of those movies except for the last two with Chris Pratt. Just saw the first one with Chris Pratt.
I'll come up with one later, and then I'll text you, or I'll say it in the middle of this podcast, and you'll say yes or no. And it'll always, like, whenever I talk to somebody and they're just like, yeah, I've never seen insert iconic film that has been on TV and everyone's minds for fucking decades, and I've never seen it. And I'll always be shocked. Like, here's the thing. I get people having never seen Miracle on 34th Street. It's not on TV all the fucking time. It's not always like during Christmas time. It's like A Christmas Story is what's played all the fucking time. So just
seen
about
A Christmas Story. I've seen A Christmas Story. Really enjoyed it. Never seen Miracle on 34th Street. Even though it came on NBC every year as a tradition. It's a traditional airing. But I was like, I'm not watching that.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. That makes sense to me. That tracks. But having never, like, oh, you've never seen the fucking Tim Burton remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay.
Nope.
But have you ever seen Willy Wonka? People are like, yeah, of course I have. Of course I've seen Willy Wonka.
Nope.
Because it has some of the greatest fucking, like, songs in a movie ever. Pure Imagination is a fantastic fucking song. It'll never not be surprising to me. Like, it'll always fucking make me go, what? Because it's again one of those incredibly iconic films that I've never met anyone who hasn't seen it until now, I guess. But anyway, the point I was getting at about fucking Roald Dahl, because Jesus Christ, I got off fucking tangent real quick. Do you know the story on a base level of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
No, not really.
Okay.
I know
Very
that
simple.
I know that a kid buys a chocolate bar, and like his grandpa had been bedridden for like 20 years, but the kid wins a ticket to the chocolate factory, and him and his grandpa go, or some shit like that. It's like, you see your family struggle for 20 fucking years and you don't get out of bed, but you'll get out of bed for a fucking free tour of a candy place, huh?
Well, that's so okay. No, okay. The story of the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is the name of the fucking. It's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the name of the book. That's why the Tim Burton one's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The general idea is that Willy Wonka owns a chocolate factory in the middle of London. It is an extremely famous, worldwide known fucking chocolate factory. And Charlie Bucket is a family who's very poor. His family has no money. They struggle every fucking week. His 4 grandparents are bedridden. His parents work like fucking 16 hours, sometimes 20 hours a day just to make ends meet. They're fucking, it's like when they eat, it's like that scene. You probably haven't seen this either, but Mickey Mouse and the Beanstalk movie.
Mickey Mouse and the Beanstalk I did watch as a kid.
Do you remember the shot when they're trying to split like a very thin piece of bread and a bean? Or very
vaguely. I haven't watched it since I was like 4, so
I was hoping there would be like a memory of it, but the point is I'm getting at about the Bucket family is they're struggling really hard. And one day Charlie's heading out of his house and he finds I don't remember because I've read the book and I've watched all the movies, and I think in the original movie he finds money in like a drain, out like while he's out on the street. But in the movie, I think the grandpa slips him a dollar or some shit like that. Sorry, the book slips him a dollar. I don't. Anyway, he goes and buys a chocolate bar. It happens to have a golden ticket. At this point in the story, that's what Willy Wonka's doing. He's like, I'm going to give 6 kids, I think it's 6 or 7, the chance to come into my chocolate factory if you can find a golden ticket. Well, each of the kids that ends up getting one is either very well off, very spoiled, because that was the entire point of Willy Wonka's like plan, was that as he takes these kids through his extremely eclectic and weird fucking chocolate factory, was to basically find the kid who was the least spoiled rotten. And Charlie being that one kid. At the end of that story, Willie says, why don't you and your grandpa come with me and we'll go into my great glass elevator. They go up into the sky because it can go any single direction he wants it to go. So they go into the sky and the story ends. Then there's the sequel to it called Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. This book should never be adapted. It is so fucking weird. And I'm not talking like good weird. I'm talking bizarre. Like, they go to a fucking different planet that's made out of candy, talk to its leader, go back to Earth, have a dinner with the president who invites Willy Wonka and this alien to have dinner at the White House. That's just one part of how weird it fucking gets. So, anyway, point I'm getting at.
So what you're saying, Roald Dahl was dropping acid when he wrote these books.
It wouldn't surprise me if that became fact. So if you decide to watch these 4 shorts on Netflix, bringing it back around, Maya, bringing it back around, be prepared for weird, because let's be honest, Wes Anderson's pretty weird too.
Well, yeah, I like Wes Anderson films for the most part, but Wes Anderson films for the most part, I haven't either, but Wes Anderson films for the most part are usually original takes, or, you know, they're not generally adaptations.
I'm going to look that up because I feel like that's not correct.
Adaptation.
I feel like he's made a bunch of adaptations, a whole bunch.
He may have.
Hold on, I'll just do Google this. Which of Wes Anderson's films are adaptations of books? Grand Budapest Hotel, Asteroid City, French Dispatch, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, Isle of Dogs, The Royal Tenenbaums, Darjeeling Unlimited.
So all of his movies are essentially adaptations, but they don't feel like adaptations because he has such a unique visual narrative style, and they're not like popular in pop culture.
No, he there's a whole
stories
article
that he adapts.
Yeah, I was like, there's a whole article I just saw that was like praising his eclectic kind of taste in literature, and that makes sense if you watch any of his fucking movies. So people have to understand out there. And you know what? On that note, my week was fine. Whatever. I'm moving on because that's really all I did other than watching things. I want to talk about adaptations again, folks. Here's my thing. So what we're going to be talking about today is Halo and Shogun. Shogun, Maya just informed me, is an adaptation of a novel that has also had another adaptation. This is the point I get at when I talk about people and adaptations and being fucking ridiculous about adaptations. almost everything you've ever consumed is an adaptation. It's rare to find something that is wholly original. There's a movie coming out with Bill Skarsgård. It's an action movie where John H. Benjamin voices like his internal monologue voice because he's mute. It looks hilarious, by the way. It's like John Wick comedy. It's basically what I'm going to call it. But that movie looks like it was adapted from a comic book. It's not. The entire film is wholly original. But I do point this out to people. Nothing you watch is going to be wholly original because it's inspired by something else. You can always find the inspiration in whatever you're watching, right? So, I have talked ad nauseum on this podcast about what makes a good adaptation and why this is important and this kind of stuff. But I was talking to my friend last night, and I thought about this, and I said, because him and I had watched, we watched the adaptation for Last Airbender and being big fans of the cartoon. But, Maya, my dad, and my brother not have ever watched the cartoon. And your guys' opinion on the show was interesting. Because I've always tried to stow my nostalgia for adaptations of things I've enjoyed. And I always find myself still kind of being drawn back to the comparison attitude and whatnot, which I did. When we talked about Last Airbender, I did do that. I've gotten better at it. Back when I used to do podcasts when I was younger, we actually got letters from people or comments, I should say, saying that I needed to stow that I was too harsh on movies or adaptations because they weren't like the source material. And then I also bring up, Total Recall, that a lot of, which comes back to the shonen thing, and I'll get to in a second. Total Recall is based off of a book called Do Androids... No, We Can Remember For You Wholesale. And...
Yeah. You were thinking of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by...
Which is
Philip K.
Blade Runner.
Dick.
Right.
Exactly.
But, everyone remembers Total Recall. Everyone loves Total Recall. It's not like the book at all. Like, very, very little are the same. And if they did a faithful adaptation of the book today and called it Total Recall, you'd see a bunch of people saying it's a shitty movie because it's not like the original, right? This goes back to my point about all of this and the point that I made to my friend last night about adaptations. Talk to somebody who enjoys good media, who has good tastes. Have them watch an adaptation of something you enjoy of the original content. There's your measurement. Do people enjoy it outside of knowing the original content? Do they? Then it's a good adaptation. Period.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
I mean, the general consensus for this Avatar adaptation on Netflix I've seen has been overwhelmingly positive.
Yes. It is something I wish the point I had making years ago. Yes, I have fought in this tooth and nail. Yes, I have had arguments with people because they want to sit there and say, "Oh, Master Chief takes off his helmet in the show, therefore it's a bad adaptation," or it's a bad adaptation because the X-Men don't have their original costumes, or it's a bad adaptation because fucking Pennywise doesn't say that in the book or whatever. God, that was the struggle for the third one there. I don't know why I was having such a hard time coming up with another fucking adaptation, but I remember talking to my aunt, and we were talking about some of the greatest horror movies of all time. And we all agreed that The Shining is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And
controversial take. I don't like it. I like the miniseries that they did with Steven Weber in the 90s better than the Jack Nicholson version.
I mean,
It was more faithful and accurate to the book than the Kubrick version.
you can absolutely have that opinion. However, objectively, The Shining with Jack Nicholson is still one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It just
it's generally recognized as that. Yes, I'm just saying I didn't care for it.
That's fine. Because to me, one of the greatest, if not my favorite horror film of all time is The Thing, which I know not a ton of people would necessarily agree with, but
I've never seen it.
You should rectify that. You really should. I'm not just saying
I've heard that it's really good, and I kind of want to watch it. I probably would.
That's the reason I'm saying that is because it's a dark story. It's got some granted it's dated, but not dated to that degree anyway. Point I'm getting at is my aunt was like, I would have liked that movie more if they added in this specific part. To which I tried to explain to her the story doesn't need that part to be a good story. The story is cohesive enough in the Shining specifically to tell the story that it needs to tell. She ended up getting upset with me because I was basically telling her she thought I was calling her stupid, and I'm like, no, I'm just saying that you don't need this entire aspect from the book to tell the story and to have it be good. But yeah, that's from here on out is going to be my measure for a good adaptation. Did it satisfy the people who don't know the source material? Did it do its job of telling the story? Because I've also pointed out quite a bit to you and to others that, and this is an experience that I've had, because I have a tendency to go a little long in the tooth with stories that I'm telling. And I've worked really hard on making that a thing, not so much anymore. But I've also learned that this idea works for films and movies and TV shows and whatnot as well. You'll see all the time movies come out and they're just like, hey, here's a bunch of deleted scenes. And people go, well, why was this scene deleted? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it's not totally necessary to the plot. Did you need that scene to know, did you have to have everything's put on a silver platter for you to I know that a lot of people don't like ambiguous endings. I fucking love them. One of my favorite movies of all time, genuinely, people don't know this, but is No Country for Old Men. And there's a big reason why that's one of my favorite movies. It's because the entire story is told from an unreliable narrator and then has a fucking ambiguous ending. And you, as the viewer, get to kind of piece it together without it being told to you directly. And that to me is something that I think is a good example of an entire story, a plot told to you that doesn't need to be so, here's everything from A to Z, my dad constantly, I know you've probably never seen the Hunger Games movies.
Did not like the first one. I turned it off halfway through. Didn't bother with the rest.
Okay. That's a conversation for a different time, because it's funny you say that, because I got so interested in the plot of Hunger Games that I bought the books to know more of the story. One of the biggest aspects of Hunger Games is that it's in a future world where there are different districts that supply different goods to the capital. And the Capitol holds the Hunger Games every year to reward one of the 13 districts with supplies and food and all this kind of stuff. The Hunger Games themselves is basically a death competition. Why did I bring up Hunger Games? Oh, that's what it was. When reading the book, it focuses on Katniss, the main character, the one that Jennifer Lawrence played. Jennifer Lawrence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hated the third book. That's neither here nor there. The point that I'm getting at with the Hunger Games is that my parents got really interested in the story too. So I loaned them the books. They watched or they read them. I still don't know if they've watched any. I think my dad's watched the first 2 movies. I've only watched the first 2 movies because I have no interest in the fucking third and fourth because that third book is trash in my opinion. Way to fucking face plant on the landing, let me tell you. But talking to my dad about it, he was like, my only complaint about the Hunger Games books is that we never learned more about Panem and how the United States got to the point that it was. Like, what's the history? I want a map. And I'm like, none of that fucking matters. None of it matters to the plot of the story. You know, it really fucking doesn't. And I've learned that with adaptations. Like I said, my first experience in that sort of thing with adaptations was with the fourth Harry Potter movie. You know, leaving the theater with a bunch of people who had read the books and they're bitching and complaining about all this stuff. And I'm like, I really enjoyed it. And then talking to my friend and I go, I know that the story of what happens to the Weasleys is not the same in the books, but it's got the same point across. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, with what happens in the books, that's why the Weasleys are at this specific point in the story, right? Yeah. Well, they're the same exact point in the movie, just different occurrences. He's like, oh yeah, you got a point. I'm like, yeah, that's how I want to see it. Because if,
I think that one was my favorite out of all the movies. I think that one was my favorite, even though it was one of the most drastic. Well, no, the 6th one was the most drastically different from the books. But, I mean, they had to cut a lot of shit from it. They had to, because that was the first really long, I think it was 600 pages. And of course, they're trying to make a 2.5 hour movie out of it. Yeah. So they had to cut a lot of shit, but I thought it was well done.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started using the term the spirit of an adaptation, but it doesn't really land the way that I want it to. It's not a spirit of an adaptation. It's the point of the adaptation. Is the story, the overarching story, the same? I remember having this conversation quite a bit on Facebook with other people when the adaptation of Death Note had come out. Because I really enjoyed the anime, and that movie is not like the anime for most of it. It's very different. That being said, what makes that adaptation bad is it's just a bad movie. But it was always interesting to kind of hear people talk about that movie and having had watched the anime. Because it wasn't that the movie was bad. It was just, it's not a good adaptation because it doesn't follow the anime. And I'm like, we gotta start giving people their flowers, or I guess trash if they're not good outside of. And anyway, the measure from here on out, if an adaptation is good or not, is that people who don't know the fucking source material enjoy the fucking story. That's it. Plain and simple. There's no more to it. And I wanted to share that with everybody. That conversation went on a little longer than I wanted it to. But the other topic that I wanted to bring out is we gotta stop putting old dudes in the fucking ring in wrestling. We gotta stop celebrating that shit. I'm glad Sting had a great send-off this last week, but it wasn't necessary. hey, get Ric Flair out of the fucking ring. What are we doing? That shit, like, I can't stand that shit anymore. It's not entertaining. You know, we were talking about before we started this that The Rock's going to be doing, you know, he's doing a bunch of shit right now. He'll be wrestling at WrestleMania, but he can't get through a fucking promo without panting. Like, wrestling is a young man's fucking game. We really, really got to stop fucking celebrating that shit, or it's just going to keep happening. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I'm just not about it.
It depends. It depends on the individual.
I don't think it does.
I think it does. I think it depends on the individual. Ric Flair absolutely doesn't need to be in the ring. He's an old-ass, incredibly out of shape and poor health man who is talking that he wants one more fucking match.
Dude, Mick
He had
Foley
a
was saying that shit. I'm
retirement
like,
match.
Mick, stay out of the fucking ring.
But, you know, it's also a lot. The match styles today do not lend themselves to older workers, whereas back in the day they used to, because they weren't as well, let's just say, you know, look at Darby Allin, for example. You've seen the fucking shit that he does.
The fucking
You know.
dumbass goddamn moves, yes.
Yeah, well, you know, he does shit that he shouldn't do. But he's also like 29 years old and is able to do that shit. But at the rate he's doing this shit, he'll be done by the time he's 40. Whereas people like Sting, who is 64 and just had his last fucking match, you know, he was able to wrestle and have good matches up to, you know, almost, well, he was in his 50s. But he wasn't able to have as good caliber matches, but he worked a style that lent itself to, you know, he could work around those shortcomings of the things he wasn't able to do anymore.
Again, it might be a
You know.
fucking hot take. It really might be, but I find those matches incredibly boring. Like, I'll go with somebody who's a bit younger, and I find incredibly boring because they're too old to be in the fucking ring. Jericho.
No, Jericho's like 53.
I know.
He has lost. He's still trying to wrestle the same kind of matches he was when he was 33. That's his problem. He's out of shape, and he doesn't have the ability to go like he used to. He needs to adapt his style or just get out.
Well, that's my other
there's-
point, Maya, is that, like, you're saying adapt to that style. That style you're talking about for older wrestlers, that shit is boring as hell to me. Those matches are just straight dookie.
You know, and that's the thing. You know, that's where you and I differ. I don't find it necessarily boring. I see it as still putting on a believable match, you know, to where they're working within the confines of their abilities, instead of, you know, not, and trying to do shit that they shouldn't be doing. Like Sting diving off fucking ladders through a table. He shouldn't be doing that shit at 64 fucking years old.
When I watch wrestling, I want to see wrestlers having fun. But having fun in a way that is, well, not fucking boring. And I find whenever I watch matches from AEW that have older guys, I am consistently bored. I am consistently just kind of like elbow on the desk with my hand in my my fist in my chin, just kind of like because they're not doing anything that to me is indicative of a fucking stunt. Because that's all wrestling is. It's a series of stunts. And knowing wrestling the way that I do, I want those bumps to look more realistic. Like, let's take the fucking Gunther Dominic Mysterio match. Dominic was taking those bumps like a fucking champ. But you can't do that kind of stuff with an older wrestler, with an older guy.
Again, it depends on the individual. Some can.
They shouldn't be.
That's
the other thing that like, I used to watch backyard wrestling when I was younger, right? I used to watch people do some stupid shit to their bodies back when I was younger. What Darby Allin did had to be up there with some of the dumbest shit I've ever fucking seen. I'm not entertained by that. You ever watch any
CZW?
I mean, I probably have. I've watched a lot of shit from different like independent groups, different non-independent groups where people are throwing themselves through like, hey, it took us 20 minutes to build this fucking like tables, chairs, and what are those pipes called? The light bulb pipes. What the fuck are those called?
Oh, tube lights?
The tube lights, yeah. Like a series of that shit and then jump off a fucking rafter into that. I've seen that shit. I've seen some fucking wild shit, man. Like, like take an actual wooden bat.
Death matches, they're referred to as, I've never been a fan of that style of stuff. And Darby teeters on that shit.
Yeah. It might be because I'm older and I just don't find that shit entertaining anymore. But like I watched that clip of him doing that and people were like celebrating and I'm like, no, don't fucking like, no, absolutely not. It's fucking stupid. So
no, I don't disagree. It's not my favorite cup of tea either. When they do stuff like that, and Moxley is notorious for doing shit like that, which is why one of the reasons why I can't stand him.
He did a thing back when we were like you were having me watch it. It was like one of the pay-per-views you bought.
We watched All Out back in the end of August.
Because he brought out a bunch of fucking skewers you would use like for barbecuing or whatever, and he went like he went to stab somebody, but then got stabbed with them, and they were like sticking out of his skin and his forehead. And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny, but it's like, what the fuck was the point?
Oh, he's got to show he's a badass. That's his whole thing. He wants to show off that he's a badass and sell it as a combat sport. It's not. It's a form of entertainment, and he's all the time wanting to bleed to make it, to show off the real. Yeah, I can't stand the guy. And what's funny is he did that skewer in the head spot a week before in Japan.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I don't know, man. I find so many things that wrestlers do, especially today, to be so fucking needless and boring. And it's usually guys like, you listen to Mick Foley do interviews and stuff, and he talks about how when he was, younger and doing his extreme matches back in the day, he was doing whatever he could to make a name for himself. And I get that, and that's there's nothing necessarily wrong with that idea, but you know what also works? Not fucking putting your body through hell. It really, like taking a chair shot, taking, like one of the fucking aluminum trash cans to the back or something like that. That's fine. All of that's fine. Going through a fucking a table that already has like, a crack in it, so that way it buckles under pressure. The announcer table, which is meant to be a breakaway table, that all makes sense to me. All of that is part of stunt work. But throwing yourself onto a mat that is less than a fucking inch thick onto a plane of glass that has no breakaway. It's not sugar glass. Like, stupid. Fucking, like, his back looks like absolute shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's so dumb. I just don't get it. And then, like, again, I'm glad Sting had a great moment. I'm glad that him and his sons could have that moment together. That's awesome. I have nothing against that. What I'm against is the idea that Sting was even wrestling in the fucking first place.
Well, he
should have been a fucking manager or some shit, taking a bump every once in a while. That's what should have been, but...
Well, he only had like 29 or 30 matches in the past 4 years. So that's essentially working 6 times a year, 7 times a year.
Still, I mean, it's still boring, regardless.
Well, that's why he's always worked in a tag team with Darby. Darby did all the heavy work, and Sting would do, a few things here and there. But, I see your point. I don't necessarily agree with it just because of his age. I think it depends on the individual. And if they're still physically able to do certain things, yeah, fine. But, I like the fact that he was able to have this last 4-year run or 3-year run, whatever it was, because of, he had that freak accident with the match with Seth Rollins back in 2015 and was told, you're done. You're never going to be able to wrestle again, and he was still able to do things then. But, like Flair, no. Don't do it. Foley, no, don't do it. We watched that documentary on Netflix, Wrestlers, about OVW. Al Snow had his last, came out of retirement, wrestled his first match in like 10 years. Was able to do a decent match, but yeah, I mean, he was blown up in the match, and Basham, had to carry him, and the other guys had to carry him too, but he was still able to do it. But would I want to see Al Snow wrestle on a regular basis? No. Like Edge. I think Edge needs to hang it up.
Mm-hmm.
Christian can still fucking go. He and Edge are the same age, but Christian can still fucking go. Edge needs to hang it up.
In that, like, mind, like that concept to me is like one of the things to me about older wrestlers that I'll always find fascinating is they want that spotlight back so fucking bad that they're willing to put their body on the line again. You've already given us so much. Stop. You don't have to do that. Do you want to be on the spotlight again? Do you want to continue playing your character? That's fine. There are multiple ways to do that. There really, really fucking are. You could also still be in the wrestling business like Al Snow. Like, there are so many kids out there that need to be trained. There are so many people out there that have the body to be able to do these stunts and be fine for a long time that you can train. You can also run a fucking business. You can be a character and just be like a fucking manager or some shit. There's so many options that I never see these guys take, and they go, I want to be 20 years old again. That's never going to happen. And again, maybe it's because I am older and I understand the idea of the body not fucking functioning like it used to. But Jesus Christ, it scares me to watch these older wrestlers try to take these fucking bumps, because I'm like, I'm going to watch a fucking bone snap. And it's the last thing I want any of these fucking old school guys to deal with. Like, watching Ric Flair take a bump is like fucking rolling the dice if you're going to watch an old man die.
Oh, hell, he almost did in that match he had when he tagged with Andrade El Idolo against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal in that match 2 years ago. He almost passed out. And he was trying to play it off as like, oh no, I was just faking a heart attack out there because I needed to slow down. He probably really was having a heart attack out there. because he's in such poor health because of the way he's lived his life. But yeah, it's fucking crazy.
I think overall, I want to move on in here in a second because we're Jesus Christ, we're 54 minutes into this. I'm done watching old wrestlers. I'm done. I have no interest in it. Fucking like, let's use an actual or a sport with actual competition. Aaron Rodgers, man's not even old enough, old fucking enough. Like, Jason Kelsey just announced his retirement the other day.
Yesterday,
was it yesterday? I thought it was Monday.
Mm-hmm. No, it was yesterday.
No, it was Monday. It was Monday because they talked about it on Raw when they showed the Coliseum or the stadium that they're going to for WrestleMania.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
My days have been blurring together, like I said.
I know. I was pretty sure it was Monday, not yesterday, and then I remembered that one little detail. I was like, yeah, that's right. Fuck you, Maya.
Hey, I'm wrong sometimes.
But yeah, I'm just not interested in it anymore. Like, I nostalgia doesn't mean shit, and that's why to me, I think The Rock is still really good on the mic. Personally, I know that you're not a big fan, whatever. But I do believe that The Rock probably has a good match in him, but I guarantee you that match is going to be slow.
I guarantee you he's going to come out with an injury of some sort, too. Because he's not wrestled a match in how many years now. And he goes in there against Cody and Seth, in that tag match. I guarantee you he comes out with an injury because the last match he had, he came out with a fucking injury.
Yeah, you're right.
Look at his age. Look at his frame. He's fucking, I'm sorry. The motherfucker is obviously on the juice. And that's a lot of mass for his body to be fucking carrying around. And he's just going to do something.
Speaking of that, on a side note, that's why I have so much fucking respect for Dave Bautista. But have you seen Dave's his muscle mass drop since he stopped wrestling?
Well, no, I've not really paid attention, but yeah, he was definitely on the shit back in the day.
He had because he's in obviously Dune, but he talked about how he doesn't want to play Drax anymore. He doesn't want to do these roles where he has to do a lot of physical shit because he's just too old. And because of that, his exercise regimen isn't nearly as strict as it was before. So he's lost quite a bit of muscle mass. I have immense respect for that kind of shit. I wouldn't be surprised if John Cena does that soon too, because that guy's getting up there in age as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and do our reviews, because this podcast is going long in the tooth. If you have a synopsis for Halo Episode 5.
I do. Episode 5 of Halo is titled Ilaria. It opens up Silver Team. They've been cornered by a brute. And, seems like they're about to be just decimated. And that's when Quan Ha and Soren's wife Lara arrive in a transport ship and rescue them. But in the process, Riz is severely wounded after she recovers Vanek's body. Master Chief witnesses Reach being glassed by the Covenant before falling unconscious. While unconscious, he remembers that Cortana had agreed to do something for Admiral Parangoski in exchange for saving his life. McKee, now disillusioned with the Prophets, has attempted to enlist Cortana and Vargatanae to go rogue to find the Halo themselves. While Cortana initially refuses, she secretly shows Var Master Chief's memory of his vision of Halo, convincing Var to change his mind. Meanwhile, on Alaria, Dr. Halsey operates on Riz, but having suffered significant damage and already recovering from prior injuries, Riz decides to stay behind on Alaria and live a normal life. Soren and Lara seek out their son Kessler, only to discover he was taken by the UNSC. After some initial disagreement between Quan Ha and Master Chief, a crematory funeral for Vanek is held. Master Chief swears to hunt down Parangoski and Ackerson, ignoring Halsey's request for him to focus on finding the Halo instead. Quan has a vision of the Sanctuary Shaman, who ominously warns her that the monster is coming closer. And on Onyx, we see Kai meet with Ackerson and preparing to lead a unit of Spartan troops. And it was a big fucking unit, like several fucking squadrons, or not squadrons, but shit. Anyway, there's probably well over 100 troops in that shot.
Yeah. So
looks like she's being in a command position.
So there is a book called Ghost of Onyx. It's about a squad of Spartan 2s that get misplaced or lost or something like that, and they have to survive the forest of planet Onyx. It's a very good book. So the fact that they're going to be adapting it for the show is very exciting, or at least sort of adapting it. I'm excited about it. Hopefully, it's really good. But that's what I was gonna send you the cover to the Ghost of Onyx when I text you if you had watched the episode yet.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah,
you hadn't
watched. With all the stuff I was dealing with Thursday and Friday, I hadn't watched it yet. I did watch it Saturday though.
I told you to tell me when you watched it.
Well, I've watched it.
Go ahead.
I said I've watched it now.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, goddamn it, Mike. So this episode was easily the biggest departure from the games. At least for this season. Not games, I'm sorry, the novels to the games. In the storyline of the game, Master Chief is injured on Reach and is put in his suit, which helps heal him, and put into a cryo chamber while Halsey stays on Reach to finish her research. And the final mission of the Reach video game, you're playing as a Spartan 3, just to keep that in context. And you and the other Spartan 3s have to deliver a package, quote unquote, to the Pillar of Autumn, which is where Master Chief is, and that's Cortana. I don't know how much of that they'll use for this show, but the fact that like Chief is on a different planet and not on Reach, I'm like, oh, that's different. The fact that Halsey's not on Reach, I'm like, that's different. So, but again, it's an adaptation. Were you entertained, Maya?
Absolutely.
Then the adaptation did its job.
Even though I realized, it was obvious that Riz was not going to fucking continue on being a Spartan anymore. They were planting the seeds early for that in this season.
Yeah.
And it was clear that was the path that she was going to choose, was to walk away. But it was still a touching moment between her and Master Chief. When she told him, she's like, I'm not coming. He's like, you're all I have left. And she's like, I know. And then they hug, and then he's like, okay, enough of this hugging shit. I got a mission. And he just walks off.
Yeah.
But, I'm really digging the show.
It's very good. I think one of the more interesting aspects to the show that the game never really does in any way, shape, or form is humanize Master Chief. You know, in the games, there's a small human aspect to him with his interactions with Cortana, but he's still very stoic and very matter of fact when it comes to anything in those games. It's the novels that humanize him a little bit more, but this show was like, nah, he's still a dude in a suit. And I'm like, that's fucking rad. I like that. This episode was a big, like, the reason I mention this because this episode was a big example of that. Huge example of that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this side story with Soren and his wife. Like, I'm curious where that's going to fucking finish at.
Well, I know the next episode is titled Onyx, so that's probably going to be a Kai-centric episode.
I hope so. I hope it's an adaptation of that novel.
And then episode 7 is titled Thermopylae.
It's going to be, I mean, I know why they're calling it Thermopylae, and it's the story of the 300 Spartans and all that jazz.
Oh, I know they mentioned it in episode 4. You know, Keyes mentioned to Chief that, you know, they had like units stationed at Thermopylae, and that's where they were falling back to, or something like that. I don't remember the specific line, but I know they mentioned the fucking location.
So, I don't know how much you know about the actual story of the 300 Spartans in the past of Thermopylae.
Oh, you mean like historically the 300
Greek.
Spartans? Yeah.
Greek Spartans, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is because I feel like this episode is going to be a hearkening to that story. Is more so.
We'll see. We'll see next week because, you know, tomorrow episode 6 drops, Onyx, and we'll be watching that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've just got 3 episodes left. I've been thoroughly enjoying it.
Same here. Oddly enough, I just wish more fucking Halo fans would, you know, enjoy it as well. But you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Well, let's go ahead and move on. But before we do, what rating would you give the episode? Great.
I give it an A. It was very well done, very solid, shot wonderfully well. You know, a little predictable in the moment when Riz walked away, but you know, as I said, they've been planting the seeds for that, so I'm not going to knock it for the predictability of that. But yeah, I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it a lot. What about you?
It's on A. It's a very interesting idea to take an extremely action-packed episode and follow it up with a very emotionally driven episode. It's interesting to see them kind of play with that and move around that concept. So I appreciated that. But yeah, it was solid. It was really solid. I like I said, I'm so invested in, like, I didn't give a shit about Soren originally, and now I'm like, what's up with their son? What, they're gonna find him? Like I want to know that story really bad. So it's just weird, but and the other thing I was gonna point out. So I think, and I could be wrong, but that specific elite or Sangili that what's her ass is talking to,
McKee.
McKee. I think that character is going to become the Arbiter. For context, in the games, when you finish the first game, Master Chief, not fully, but destroys the Halo. Again, I have no idea what the show is going to do because it has been a pretty strong departure. But in the second game, the Covenant basically tells this one specific Sangheili. Like, you were in charge of the troops on that Halo. You have one option now, and that's to become the Arbiter, and you have to do like basically a suicide mission in order to get your honor back. And that Arbiter becomes a very important part of the story. So I think that Sangheili is going to be the Arbiter. But we're not even close to that aspect happening yet. So not even like if they go by the route of the games, which is like he has to fail in order for that, like that's not like till in season 4, I imagine. So, but that's my I've played all the games and read a bunch of the books prediction. And it has no context or bearing on you at this moment.
Nope.
But I just want to throw it out there. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and move on to Shogun. We have 3 episodes to talk about of this, which just go ahead and run down what happens in the 3 episodes, and then we'll just review what we've watched so far. So
these are long write-ups, but there's a lot that goes on. But a brief overall view before we start that.
Because I also don't want to spoil it for people, because it's such a good show.
It is a good show. It's based on a 1975 novel of the same name that was written by James Clavell, and it was previously adapted into a limited series in 1980 that premiered with, it was a 5-episode miniseries that they did on NBC, so I didn't know that. That's cool. But this is a 10-episode series. It's going to release weekly. Last week they released the first 2 episodes. This week, which was the 3rd episode, was released yesterday. The premise, it follows the collision of 2 ambitious men from entirely different worlds and a mysterious female samurai. We see John Blackthorne, a risk-taking English sailor who ends up shipwrecked in Japan, a land whose unfamiliar culture will ultimately redefine him. Lord Toranaga, a shrewd and powerful daimyo, at odds with his own dangerous political rivals. And Lady Mariko, a woman with invaluable skills but dishonorable family ties who must prove her value and allegiance. Those are our 3 main players. As for the book, it's a fictionalized version of real events in history, and the book's actually told in both Japanese and English. The English portion of the dialogue would have been in Portuguese in reality, which is what we're seeing in the show.
Yes,
all the Japanese characters speak Japanese, and all of the English-speaking characters are actually speaking Portuguese. But for the purposes of the show, they're speaking English.
Which I found to be interesting, but I understand why they need that to be a dichotomy there, because it's part of like how the story flows. But I was like, if you're gonna have them speak in Japanese, at least have everyone else speaking in Portuguese. I don't know. It's a small, just the tiniest nitpick, but yeah. So it's a small nitpick. I wouldn't put anything against the show, because one of the big like aspects to the plot is the fact that there needs to be translation. That there are certain characters that become important to the plot because of translation. And, having half the cast talk Japanese, well, more than half the cast talk Japanese, and then the other group speak English, even though they're speaking Portuguese, which is closer to Spanish. But it makes sense. It makes sense for just flow of fucking shit. There's an excellent goddamn scene in this show. I don't remember which episode, but it's our main like non-Japanese guy talking to one of the head guys, and there's a translator between them. And when it becomes abundantly clear that you don't need to hear the translator, it just keeps cutting between them talking to each other, but in Japanese and English.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that was in episode 2.
That was a great shot. I love that. I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
I'm pretty sure it was in episode 2. But yeah, the first episode is titled Onjin, and it's set. Pilot. Yeah, I was going to say that, but
I was excited.
No, I wasn't. All right. Keep it in your pants.
I like this show a lot.
Yeah, it's very good. So it starts out in the year 1600. We see a lone Dutch trading ship, the Erasmus, and its starving and surviving crew, which is basically 13 of them. I think it was, because he had 12 crew members left. It arrives at Onjiro on the coast of Japan. The ship had been part of a 5-ship, 500-crew Dutch fleet, all of which had been lost at sea, except for the few of the Erasmus left to arrive in Japan. Captain commits suicide. Pilot Major John Blackthorne, the ship's English navigator, is taken prisoner by samurai warriors. The Japanese leader Taiko has died a year prior, leaving the rule split among 5 equal daimyo regents designated by the deceased Taiko to protect his child heir son at Osaka Castle. The daimyo are Ishido Kazunari, Sugiyama, Kiyama Ukon Sadanaga, Ono Haranuobi, and Yoshi Toranaga. Sorry if I butchered fucking pronunciation.
I have to stop you. So there's a woman that I know, I follow on TikTok. She's from the South, but she lives in Japan. She speaks very fluent Japanese, but she loves to do videos where she speaks Japanese with an American Southern accent, and that's what she sounded like.
Okay. Moving on. Fuck you.
Great. No, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's just funny. It's just a funny accent with a language you don't speak. It's just funny.
Yeah, well, Toranaga is descended from the line of the House of Minowara, a historically powerful family in feudal Japan. The entrenched Portuguese traders in the Catholic Church's Jesuit order are the religious enemies of Protestant Queen Elizabeth's English Blackthorn. Local Jesuit minister who considers any Protestant a heretic immediately attempts to have Blackthorn executed by the Japanese as a declared pirate. But after the fief's ruler, Kashigi Yabashige, shut the fuck up, dismisses the minister's request and secretly plots to use the Dutch ship to his own benefit of war if war inevitably breaks out. At Osaka Castle, the other 4 regents initiate the process to impeach and thereby condemn to death Toranaga and all his clansmen. A spy in Onjiro sends a messenger pigeon. It's a piss and pigeon. A spy in Onjiro sends a messenger pigeon to Toranaga about the captive Blackthorn, and Toranaga orders the foreign navigator to be brought to the castle. Another navigator, Vasco Rodriguez, a Spaniard in the service of the Portuguese, sails the Japanese ship to bring Blackthorn and the Erasmus cargo to Osaka. But along the way, a storm wave washes Rodriguez overboard, and Blackthorn takes command of the ship and saves Rodriguez as well as his captor. Blackthorn is then taken aback by Yabushige's readiness to take his own life when he appears just on the verge of drowning and bows before him when he's rescued. Sometime later, Rodriguez's ship arrives at Osaka, and Blackthorn is amazed at how massive the Japanese port city is. He is taken to the castle where he meets Toranaga and Mariko. So that's the recap of episode 1. We'll break everything down in a few minutes. Episode 2 opens up a year prior in 1599, where we see the Taiko actually dying, and he points to 5 regents, but he admits that he only trusts Toranaga. Back in 1600, Rodriguez gives Blackthorn's confiscated rudder and journal, which contains a description of the secret Spanish and Portuguese trade intelligence to the Jesuits. During Blackthorn's first interview, both Toto Marico and the Jesuit priest Martin Alvito, translated in Portuguese for Blackthorn, but they're interrupted by Ishido's southern rival. Ishido being one of the main rival regents of Toranaga. Toranaga feigns disinterest in Blackthorn and has him thrown into prison to keep him from Ishido. Privately, Toranaga muses that he can use Blackthorn's presence to sow division between Ishido and the Christian daimyo Kiyama and Ono. While in prison, Blackthorn meets another prisoner falsely forsworn by the rival Jesuits to the Japanese, the Franciscan friar, Father Domingo, who explains that Toranaga is one of the 5 competing samurai warlords attempting to ascend to the most powerful position in Japan, the shogun, the military governor of Japan, a position that had been vacant since 1573. Domingo informs Blackthorn that Toranaga is currently losing and that the Portuguese Black Ship has been taking the vessel vast profits from the silk trade between China and Japan back to Europe and using a secret military base in Macau guarded by Catholic converted brigand Ronin. He also tells Blackthorn that the Portuguese church has smuggled guns from Macau to Japan to incite an uprising against the Taiko. A unanimous order by the other 4 regents is needed to impeach Toranaga. Ishido calls for a vote on Toranaga's impeachment, but Kiyama and Ono refuse to sign until Blackthorn is executed due to his Protestant faith, and Ishido reluctantly agrees. Later, Toranaga's opportunistic retainer, Yabashige, convinces Ishido that Blackthorn could be useful in discerning the Christians' plans for Japan. When he is taken to be executed, Blackthorn is rescued by Yabushige's men posing as bandits. Toranaga remarks on the luck of Yabushige being at the right place at the right time to rescue the condemned Blackthorn. In a second meeting with Toranaga, with Mariko serving as, this time as sole translator, Blackthorn is asked to draw a map of the world and reveals that the end goal... Oh, wait. I skipped a line. He's asked to draw a map of the world, and the palace is a garden, to which he shows that Portugal and Spain are in conflict with England and have laid claim since 1494 over Japan. He reveals that their end goal is to replace Japan's government with a Catholic one and shares the existence of the Catholic secret base in Macau. Toranaga, Mariko, and all the Japanese present are shocked to hear that all of Japan's lands and citizens belong to the King of Portugal. In retaliation against the Portuguese and the Jesuits, Toranaga bars the Portuguese Black Ship from leaving Osaka. That night, an assassin sent by Kiyama on behalf of the Jesuits nearly kills Toranaga, who is saved by Blackthorn. Realizing that the assassin did not target his room, Toranaga understands that their target was Blackthorn. That's a long write-up. I'm sorry. And then episode 3 is called Tomorrow is Tomorrow. We see Lord Yabashige write his will before meeting with Toranaga. Don't laugh at me. Shut the fuck up. It's Misty over here. It's Misty over here. She's laughing her ass off.
Hold on. Okay, here's why I'm laughing. I just need you to hear this, okay?
Madoka-san, a Yankee desu ka? So desu ka? Baka no yona inoi. Funny enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not that fucking pronounced. I'm not that twangy.
No, you're not, but doesn't make it any less funny.
Okay. Misty's losing her shit over here. She's like fanning her face, trying to hold in tears.
Dude.
Go ahead, let it out. Let it out. Jesus fucking Christ. She's laughing funny because I fucking transposed the word wife and then correctly reverted back to will.
She gonna be okay?
Are you okay?
This wife. What kind of porn are you watching?
It's not porn. Right, as in ride a fucking wheel. Not ride, as in ride his wife. Jesus Christ, you pervert. Oh my goodness. And that is not getting edited out. That's just a funny moment.
Nope. Stay it in.
This is what happens when I record in the same room while she's working. It happens. Hey, real life, folks. All right. Episode 3. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Lord Yabashige writes his will before meeting with Toranaga, believing he'll be put to death. Instead, Toranaga promises him a larger fief and instructs him to move Blackthorn and Toranaga's wife, Lady Kiri, to his fishing village. In the Portuguese headquarters, Captain Ferreira rebuffs the official ban on the black ship sailing away. Disregarding the church's disapproval and the negative diplomatic consequences, he instructs Rodriguez that they will leave the same night. At the palace, the caravan escorting, I was trying to say escorting and extorting at the same time. But back at the palace, the caravan escorting Blackthorn prepares to leave with a company of soldiers, including Buntaro, which is Mariko's husband, Yabashige, and Toranaga's son. Lady Kiri gets in one of the litters for transport, but before they can leave, Ishido arrives with his men to inspect the caravan under the guise of paying respects. The pregnant Shizu creates a ruse to distract everyone while Toranaga takes his wife's place in the litter wearing a woman's hat. Mariko tells Blackthorn if this subterfuge is discovered, they'll all be killed. Ishido's men try to inspect the caravan again before leaving the castle, but before they can discover Toranaga in the litter, Blackthorn creates a scene pretending to be outraged at their invasion of the lady's privacy. The caravan leaves the castle but is raided later that night by both Kiyama and Ishido's men. They escape to the harbor and try to sail away quietly, but Ishido's men are in pursuit after the alarm has been sounded. Buntaro is left on the dock fighting Ishido's men and is killed. Toranaga's party boards the galley, but Blackthorn sees more men waiting in ambush on fishing boats. They then use the larger Portuguese trading ship to avoid the ambush. Aboard the black ship, Toranaga meets with the Portuguese and strikes a deal, offering them clearance to leave, a sum of silver coins, and permission to build a church in Edo in exchange for the passage on their ship. Toranaga also convinces them to sway the Christian regents in his favor. The Portuguese give Toranaga the evidence that Blackthorn is a pirate. Ferreira, Rodriguez, and Toranaga's party sail away on the black ship, while Blackthorn, who is supposed to stay behind as part of the terms of the deal, follows it in the galley as the men in the hold row furiously. He narrowly avoids both the fishing boats and the rocks, rejoining the black ship. Once safe at sea, Toranaga makes Blackthorn a Hatamoto and asks him to teach Western tactics to a new regiment. Then Toranaga asks Blackthorn to show him how to dive. A messenger in Osaka informs the regents that Toranaga has resigned from his position, which means they no longer have the quorum to vote on his impeachment. And the episode ends with Toranaga and Blackthorn both agreeing to race to the shore of, I guess it's Edo that they're going to. And they dive into the water and swim off. And the episode fucks off. So, a lot of stuff going on. You see a lot of political movement.
Religious
political upheaval. Well, there's the Catholics are intervening, interfering. The regents. There's infighting. You have this fucking mysterious Englishman who's being accused of piracy show up. I mean, a lot of cool moving parts in this fucking show, and it's based on historical events, loosely based. It's a fictionalized telling of real events.
Yeah. But
fucking cool.
Well, that's why I kept calling it Japanese Game of Thrones, because that was the thing about Game of Thrones that people didn't understand, was that all of the stories that you're seeing in there are inspired by real events that happened at some point in time, and that's essentially what this is. I sincerely hope that this series isn't a one and done, and that they just keep it going even after the source material is done.
Well, the Wikipedia entry says this is a historical drama limited series.
I know.
Which is, to me, implies one and done. But honestly, based on something that I'm looking at, and I'm not going to reveal it on the podcast because it's spoilery, I think they could go 2 seasons.
Gotcha.
easily,
Gotcha.
possibly 3.
I think 3 or 4 is a solid stopping point.
I'm basing this on what the entry says under the premise and who the characters are actually based on, their lifelines, their birth date and death dates.
Gotcha.
And some of these characters live far past 1600. So, I'm like, they could tell the story of the book over the course of a season, but they could continue on afterwards. Hopefully that's what will happen. But yes, really enjoying this show.
Yeah, I'm fucking thoroughly enthralled. I need to know how it ends. I can't, like, Tuesday.
I can tell you
Well,
how historically it ended, but I wouldn't.
well, yeah, I don't know. What I love about, like, stuff like this, because I love Japan. I love the history of Japan, I should say. And what's so, like, fun, I don't know if fun's the right word, what's so fascinating to me about feudal Japan, ancient Japan, whatever you want to call it, is how xenophobic they are. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's so insane with how xenophobic they are. And that is something that is...
A lot of nations back then were.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Like, because here's the thing. There would be, like, they keep calling him a barbarian, but he's very clearly not. He's civilized for the most part, unless he's trying to communicate and he's just frustrated. He's not barbaric in how he does anything, but they keep calling him barbarian, at least until the end of the 3rd episode. And
I don't know.
like,
I mean, he was calling that doctor that was healing up his wound, sewing up his wound, a warlock.
Well,
I was like, what is he going to bleed me? Is this warlock going to bleed me?
we're also talking about 1600, so there's that.
Like,
but
we're like, we need to give you a bath. He's like, I've already had a bath. And they're like, when did you have a bath? He's like, back in the village a few days ago. They're like, oh, we're going to give you another one. He's like, 2 baths in a week? You trying to fucking give me whatever it was? I was like, Jesus Christ.
well, I mean, I get what you're saying, but also on that, it's like a barbarian isn't that. Like, he's way more civilized than a barbarian, but
No, you know, you're talking about mannerism and customs.
Yeah.
That he's, you know, and not so much personal beliefs and habits.
Correct. So but they're only calling him a barbarian because of like him being from a different country, from him being not Japanese. So I don't know. I love the show so much. I think that, like, when I first started watching it, I was like, I'm interested in this because I saw trailers and shit. And I was like, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder how they're going to play this out. And I wasn't expecting, like, there's that shot in the first episode where that guy just fucking slices off a random villager's head off.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like, this show's going with it. Just fucking... And then there's titties in the episode, and I was like, isn't this on TV?
The one dude that got fucking boiled alive.
Oh, that was nasty.
Ooh, that was brutal. But yeah, this show, it doesn't hold back. It's available to watch on FX, but simultaneously it streams on Hulu. So you don't have to have FX, thankfully.
I thought FX was I could have sworn it's a like a standard TV station. Am I wrong on that?
It's not a broadcast TV station.
Okay.
Like Fox is. It's a cable TV station, like USA Network.
Well, that's right. That's what I'm saying. So, like, them having titties in the episode was a surprise because of that.
It's considered more of a premium cable channel, even though it's still what most people consider free TV because it's part of most cable packages. It's not like a premium channel like HBO. But yeah, the fact that they showed a bare-chested woman was a little surprising, but it was brief.
I mean, it was still long enough for me to be surprised by it. I'm not against titties. I just want anyone to fucking understand that, like, titties are great. I just wasn't. I was not expecting it.
But yeah, this show's fascinating. Definitely curious. Oh yeah, wonderfully acted. And here's the thing: I don't think I've ever seen any of these actors in anything before. Which, a lot of them are Japanese.
I've seen quite a few of them, but all in Japanese stuff.
I don't really watch a lot of.
Hang on, I'm going to pull it up because I know that there's a couple of the high-ranking characters in it. So the guy that plays Toranaga.
Oh shit!
What?
The guy that plays fucking Rodriguez, the Spaniard that
Batman
working on. What?
I know who you're talking about. He's on the Patrick Warburton, The Tick. He plays Batman well. But continue.
Well, he was on Lost. Nestor Carbonell.
Yes. He was on Lost. Okay, so the guy that... This is why I know this actor. So the guy that plays Toranaga, the one that was doing the diving with our
the main regent.
He was in the movie Sunshine, The Wolverine. He's in John Wick Chapter 4, Bullet Train, Army of the Dead, Mortal Kombat, Westworld. He's in Avengers Endgame. Like, I've seen him in so much shit.
Let's see. He's been in a lot of shit since the 60s, but okay, I watched Mortal Kombat. I watched Army of the Dead, didn't care for it, but I don't remember him on Army of the Dead. Haven't seen Bullet Train, haven't seen anything past the first three, I've seen the first John Wick. I don't remember who he was in Endgame.
The guy that Hawkeye kills when he's running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen 47 Ronin, but I want to watch it.
I haven't either. The guy that plays...
okay, I don't remember him in the Wolverine, but I have the Wolverine. I've only watched it. Oh, he was in Speed Racer.
Yeah, I don't remember him in Speed Racer, but... That's my point. I've just seen him in so many things.
I've seen him in a few things.
Yeah, I've that's all I was getting as I recognized him. I also recognized the guy that plays Yobushige. That guy like the thing I recognized him the most from or immediately was he plays Hogan, whatever. One of the he's in Thor Ragnarok and son of a bitch. What was the other one? I just saw it. The first Thor Ragnarok is what he's in. He also plays Raiden in the new Mortal Kombat, which I kind of forgot about.
Oh, that's right. He was Hogan of the Warriors 3.
The Warriors 3, thank you. Jesus.
Hogan the Grim.
The girl that plays the translator for the main character.
Mariko?
Yeah, Mariko. She's in one of the Fast and Furious movies, or two of them.
Oh, I've never seen any of those.
I know. Let's see, which are the guys that I recognize?
She's in F9. That's the only one she's in, F9.
I'm trying to see if I recognized anybody else.
Anyway, we've been going an hour and 40 minutes, so...
Yeah.
What rating would you give these
A+.
first 3 episodes?
A fucking plus, dude. Like, I do watch quite a bit of anime that's dubbed, or not dubbed, but subtitled. So this was
Mhm.
this was like it was just that. I was like, well, I recognize the language really well actually, but yeah, I think one of the issues and I don't understand why Hulu's doing this, but it does say dubbed, like there's a dubbed version of the show, but it was still in Japanese.
'Cause some people can't read.
Well, that's the part. It's still in Japanese.
Oh.
Because I thought like I tried to play it to see if it was dubbed, but it's not. Because I was trying to get my brother to watch it. Like he's a slow reader. It's not that he can't read; he just doesn't read as fast as everybody else, so he has a hard time with things that are subtitled. So I was really hoping there was a dubbed version, but it doesn't seem like there is, or at least yet there is. But I was really happy.
Apparently, there's a post-episode documentary after the second episode to assist in the difficulty in Western audiences to understand non-Western thought. And the show's producers give a synopsis of the historical silkworm trade immersed in the Japanese and Christian cultural, religious, and political elements of the three main characters in the television series. I'll have to check that out later today.
That's neat.
Yeah. As for me, I would give a fucking plus. It's fucking stellar.
Yeah.
It's fucking stellar. Go watch this. It's detailed. It's very. If you enjoyed Game of Thrones, you'll like this.
Yeah, that's why I keep calling it that. Like, that's a reason I keep calling it Japanese Game of Thrones.
Oh, speaking of Game of Thrones, the prequel series House of the Dragon, season 2 comes back in June.
I saw that, which I'm happy about.
Nice. Me too.
But yeah, everybody, I think that's gonna do it for us this long fucking episode of the podcast. We went really fucking long in the tooth on the topics today, so longer than I anticipated. We need to start the wrestling podcast so we stop talking about wrestling on this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Guys, next week all we have is Halo season 2 episode 6. And Shogun episode 4. That's it. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias, which are listed down below, so you know when new episodes are out. And if you have a discussion topic you would like us to talk about, go ahead and comment on any of the social medias or send us a message, an email, or whatever with the topic you want us to talk about. If you want to support us directly, check out our Teespring store. That's where you'll find a bunch of merch. Spring and fall or spring and summer are coming up, so go ahead and get you guys a T-shirt. Trying to think of whatever else they have on the website that does summer stuff.
Tank top.
There's a tank top. Okay, I always feel like if I say tank top, it's wrong. But yeah, go ahead and check that out. And if you made it this far in the podcast, go ahead and use AQU15 at checkout for 15% off your order. That basically takes care of shipping and handling. That's AQU15 at checkout. Maya, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Maya Dawn Fisher. It's a public profile. Shoot me a message. We'll talk about cool, nerdy shit. Just don't be a creep.
There you go.
What about you, Greg? Where can people find you?
Chub Rock Geek on all socials. I have been pretty quiet on my socials lately because I haven't had a whole lot of desire to make video game clips for some reason, but maybe I'll get back to it soon. I don't fucking know. There's a bunch of old clips on there if you want to go check that out. It's pretty fun. On any of them, really. Well, not Facebook, but anyway. Guys, again, that's Halo Season 2, Episode 6. Shogun Episode 4. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.